Hello, today is day 4 of our 30 days of watercolor flowers, and today I'm going to show you how to paint pansies. Pansies come in so many fun shapes and colors, so they're perfect when you're just trying to experiment with watercolor and color mixing. Pansies are essentially heart shapes. So you start with an upside down, almost completed heart shape and a half heart on the top. So a bottom heart shape and a top heart shape with a petal or multiple petals peeking in the back. And then you can do lots of different designs and textures and patterns within the center of the pansy. And then once we get the main pansies completed, we can paint pansies that are peeking out from behind and they'll have more partial shapes. Then some simple greenery with straight stems and small leaves, just more bunched together, kind of like a bouquet, like they're growing together out of the ground. So for the first pansy, we're going to use a bright yellow color. Start with that bottom upside down heart shape that is almost completed, and make sure to use a good amount of pigment and not too much water. Now we're going to do the half heart shape on the top. I kind of separate this heart into separate half circles on each side. And I also like to leave some white space so that we can maintain the different layers. And then I did another petal in the back, just a half circle that fills in the gaps between those other two half circles. Now, before your flower petals are dry, you're going to pick up your contrasting color. I chose a very bright orange against the yellow, and I'm dabbing it into the corners of these petals so that everything kind of blends out and diffuses in the flower petals. Just make sure you leave a little bit of a center for the center of the flower that we'll add later. Now we're going to let that flower completely dry, so I've picked up some ultramarine blue to paint another pansy. So we're going to first start with that upside down heart shape for the bottom petals, and then we will move to those half circle petals for the top. Now, some pansies have one petal that's kind of peeking out the back, and some have two. So for this pansy, I'm doing one of these half circles kind of to the side. It's kind of off center. And then I do a second back petal, even layered farther behind that. For this pansy's fun and exciting color that is used for contrast, I'm just picking up even more blue. This is more of the Prussian blue color, and I am adding it on the edges in a very dark concentration while the petals are still wet. So this helps diffuse the color a little bit, but even if some of the areas are dry, it will still look good. It'll just have a nice, more crisp line of color. My biggest piece of advice when painting pansies is to use lots of reference photos because there are so many different color combinations with pansies that you might not even think would look good together. For example, when I was doing research for this video, one of my favorite color combinations I came across was these pansies that were purple, yellow, and black. And it was such a harsh color combination because yellow and purple in watercolor cancel each other out. They make gray, and then we're adding black to the center. So I really wanted to try to recreate that color palette without ruining the colors as they mix together. So I started with a really light purple base, and then I used that color to blend in the dark purple, and then I added the yellow, and then I'll add the black. So I think the most fun part about painting pansies with watercolor is that if you're working fast enough that everything is still wet and your paper is 100% cotton so that it stays wet for a little bit longer, that the colors will blend and get that nice color diffusion that you see in pansies naturally. So it just looks really cool because it looks like you're very talented, but the watercolor really does all the work in this as long as you're just placing those colors in the right spot. If you want your colors to diffuse a little bit together, but not totally blend and change colors, just make sure it's a little bit more dry and that the paint that you're picking up is more pigmented and less watery. You will get a lot less of those uglier bleeds. Now I'm just taking my brush and dragging some of that color out to create some lines in the pansy over the top of the yellow. Now that we've got our main center pansies painted, the rest of the pansies are going to kind of be half pansies, half shapes. So we're painting those heart shapes that we've learned in the beginning, but we're hiding them. They're peeking out from behind our main center pansies. And then we can do a little bit of the detailing while it's all still wet, but it gives the idea that there's a full pansy back there, but there's just so many that they're crowded together that you're only seeing part of that one over there. And that's one way you can create this bunched look, by painting main flowers that are the focal point and then filling in the gaps with these half hidden flowers. Now I'm going to continue to keep painting pansies until I've got a full bouquet, so I am going to set this to music for anyone who wants to watch this in real time. If you want to kind of skip forward over this part, you totally can. We're going to talk more about painting details on top of these petals once they're already dry. Okay, so this purple one is already dry, and I'm going to add some line details in black to the top petals and around the center over the yellow. So this just gives a really nice pop of contrast with a hard line that doesn't bleed, which is what you want when you're painting pansies. So then if you want to also add the centers of your pansies, you can just do a nice bright yellow or a bright orange. Some of them are even black. It just depends on the pansy and what kind of contrast you want to add. Now for this light blue pansy on the lower left, I'm doing harsh lines of dark blue for the contrast. And I like adding these dark, harsh lines because if you look at pictures of pansies, they have a lot of these dark, harsh lines. So you're going to want to wait until everything is totally dry so there is no bleeding effect and you get those beautiful harsh lines. And then I'm adding some dark red for the harsh line contrast to some of the other flowers, the ones in the yellow and orange color scheme. Sometimes these lines are really harsh and big and bold, and they're like take up the whole petal, and sometimes they're really tiny and light and they're more subtle. So again, look at reference pictures and then take your creativity as far as you want it and make these as interesting or diverse or as true to nature as you like. All right, now we are going to mix up the greenery. I'm using sap green, and we're going to add some of the stems peeking through the pansies where there are gaps, and then just bringing those stems straight down under our grouping. I'm using really light pressure with the tip of my brush and doing very quick strokes. Then I am doing pressured strokes with the full body of my brush to create very simple and small leaves peeking out. We want this greenery to be pretty minimal because the pansies are really the star of the show, and the greenery is just adding the really nice finishing touch and contrast that green provides to the flowers. And with that, our pansies are finished. Now, the only thing left we need to do is to add them to our watercolor flower guide in the day for spot. My favorite color combo was the purple, yellow, and black, so that is what I chose to do because I thought it added the perfect unique touch to our watercolor flower guide. Thank you so much for being here today while we painted pansies for day 4. I will see you all tomorrow for day 5.